All right, welcome, my friends. We are back with another enthralling episode here of the Red Delta Project live feed Q&A here on reddeltaproject.com, the YouTube channel, and the Red Delta Project podcast. Yes, it's all in one complete package here. As always, we're taking a fundamental approach to fitness to simplify things like diet and exercise, giving you more power, control, and freedom. And as always, I'm your pilot, Matt Schifferly, here to land this plane through some treacherous waters as we're talking today. And today's episode is brought to you by Nosk Suspension Calisthenics Equipment. They make some of the best designed equipment at very good, affordable prices, and they have some really good selections too as well. I've started using them several years ago, and to be honest with you, I haven't really been using much else ever since because they simply make the best quality products. Link is down below if you want to check those out. So today's topic is that of learning to rekindle the spark, the desire, the motivation to exercise once again. This is something that kind of has come up several times from people in previous episodes where people say, Matt, I just don't like exercising, or I used to like doing it and I used to be motivated, but now it's just this slog. And what can I do about it? And before we jump into how to do that, it's first and foremost important to recognize that this is incredibly important to really desire and have the motivation to exercise. There's a lot of stuff in our fitness culture that is kind of like, feelings don't matter. It doesn't matter how you feel about working out. Just force yourself to do it. Screw motivation. Just make yourself do it and stuff. And yeah, that can be applied here and there. But by and large, that's really actually bad advice because we are human beings. And in order to be successful in fitness, we need to observe and influence the fundamental processes of both mother and human nature. And the more we fight those things, the more we're going to be trying to just beat our head against the metaphorical wall. And as human beings, we do things primarily based on our emotional level. And this is something that I'm discovering to a much higher or much deeper understanding, researching one of my upcoming books that I'm probably going to start writing later this year, that as human beings, our decisions on what you eat and how you exercise and if you exercise and how you do it boils down very much to your emotional state. Okay? You can know everything. You can know all there is. You can have several PhDs when it comes to diet and exercise. But when you wake up in the morning, your decisions that you're making regarding your exercise and your workouts is going to almost entirely boil down to how you feel about doing it. So how do you feel about going to the gym? How do you feel about doing push-ups? How do you feel about starting to stretch out and loosen up? That's really what's driving the bus here. You can know everything there is about how to do a push-up, but if you don't feel a positive drive to do it, you don't enjoy it, you don't have a desire to do it, well, you're pretty much SOL. You can force yourself to do anything that you don't like doing for a short period of time, maybe even several weeks, but eventually you just run out of runway. And even when you do practice these things that you force yourself to do, you're probably going to put in a much less significant amount of time, energy, and investment to actually get what you want. This is actually why one of the symbolic aspects of Red Delta Project came about. The red triangle. Red is the color of desire, passion, lust, right? When I created Red Delta Project and I created that logo and stuff, I had no idea what I was going to do as far as a fitness channel. All I knew was like, it's going to be about fitness. It's going to be about exercise and making things a heck of a lot simpler and easier to get in shape. And I didn't really know what I was going to do. Calisthenics wasn't even on my radar at that point. I had no idea what a muscle up was or what even combat conditioning was. But I did understand that the desire and the heartfelt passion for training and all the habits we do is a very key integral part to success. Without that, you're screwed. You cannot possibly hope to achieve much of anything without that emotional drive. Once you have that, your chances of success exponentially increase. But if you do not have it, you have to get it. If you have lost it, you have to get it back. It is one of those things that is very much akin to make or break it sort of deals. A couple of people coming on in, Adnan, Bosnan coming in, Michael from Dark Wake Daddy, Buff Smoke, thanks everybody for coming on. Michael's got a good tip here. I suggest visiting places that you know that triggers your enjoyment to train. For example, the playground, sporting goods store, or sporting event. And that's a very good idea, Michael. Yeah, because sometimes we just don't feel in our element in some environments. You know, some people don't feel good in a gym. They just, it smells, there's a lot of people there. It's a petri dish of viruses and stuff. If the gym's not your element, why force yourself to go there? Same thing with being outside. Some people, they don't like to like go out into the mountains and it's like sunny and buggy and hot and you got to deal with weather. Some people would rather be in a gym where everything's nice and climate controlled and stuff. And it really boils down to, well, which one's best? Well, which one do you like? Which one do you have a preference for? And this is incredibly important because when it comes down to motivation, we as human beings are always kind of subconsciously or even sometimes consciously going with that balance sheet of cost to benefit ratio. And if your cost, your perceived cost of doing something is very high and your perceived benefits are fairly low, you're just simply never going to really do it. Or you're not going to do it consistently enough or with enough effort to really get what you want. Now, the important thing to understand about this is that largely these are perceived costs. In other words, the costs to your emotional output versus reward. So you could have something that you do that on the surface looks like a really high cost. Like for me, I'm a skier. I know people who literally will drive 8 hours every single weekend in order to ski. They'll drive 4 hours out to Aspen and they'll drive 4 hours back at the end of the weekend to go ski in a Vail or something like that. Now, the surface, many people are like, that's kind of crazy. But to them, 4-hour drive, they'd be like, it's not too bad. It's 4 hours. Their perceived cost to that on how they feel about it is relatively low. But there are other people who have a gym in their basement and it takes them 4 seconds to get down there or a minute. And it's like, it's too much. It just feels like a big cost. Same thing with the benefit. There's tons of examples where people will drive themselves crazy doing exercise that we all know legitimately and logically holds no real benefit for what they're looking for. Case in point, people who are like, I got to lose the gut, I got to lose belly fat, and they'll do core exercises till the cows come home. And they're just driving themselves into the ground with all sorts of core exercises, even though fundamentally we understand that stuff does absolutely nothing whatsoever for belly fat. It's just making the abs under the fat stronger, but it does nothing at all. Same thing with a lot of times cardio. We could do a workout where they are, burning a lot of calories through things like strength training, high intensity kettlebell work and stuff like that. And they're watching their diet and they've improved their diet a million times, but they feel in their heart of hearts that they have to do cardio to burn fat. And if they don't do it, they feel like the workout wasn't as satisfying. And this is kind of a little Jedi mind trick that a lot of coaches understand, is that there will be clients who will have tendencies to desire certain kinds of training, even though we know that it doesn't really do anything. The real benefit really isn't there, but there's a perceived benefit. So we coaches have a kind of a trick where we will train people both in what we know they need and what they feel they need or what they want. A good coach will not say, no, you shouldn't be doing all that core work. It doesn't do anything for you. A good coach will be like, let's take a look at your diet. Let's make sure we're building muscle and strength and everything. And we'll finish off with 5 minutes of core work as well, just because it makes them happy. Lots of coaches I know will have their client doing exercises that legitimately have no real benefit to it or don't really do anything or really do much of anything. But we do it anyway. Why? Because they enjoy it. It makes them feel good to do that training. And it doesn't matter if it's legitimate or not. It's just there because it makes them enjoy the process, which by and alone, that enough is enough reason to do it. And why are you doing this? I like doing it. I enjoy doing it. Boom, right there. That is reason enough to do it. So when we're talking about this desire to train, there's a couple of not loopholes, like roadblocks that we often run into, especially in the later part of our training career, that can sabotage the desire to train and exercise adequately. And once that desire starts to boil down, then it gets really old real fast. So the first one of these is the belief that we have to essentially go into our workouts with the objective of basically beating the snot out of your body. Like break it down, stress it out, push yourself to your limits, all these sorts of things. And that sometimes happens, sure, and that's part of training sometimes. But when that becomes the objective of your training, you're effectively saying, I'm going to go and I'm just going to basically beat my head against a wall. I'm going to push mind, body, and lifestyle as hard as possible in the assumption that that's what's going to get results. Now, of course, it's going to take some degree of hard work in order to get results, but what you're fundamentally doing with that is essentially putting up a massive cost up front and just crossing your fingers and hoping it's going to pay off later, which is a terrible investment strategy. Instead, what we want to do is recognize that working out is not effective because of stress. I know we always were told this. I believed it for years. You get better because you stress out your body, and then it builds itself back and you have super compensation, and that's how you get bigger and stronger and faster and leaner and all these other sorts of things. But when we understand things from a fundamental perspective of how Mother Nature actually works, we realize that's not how fitness works truly. In fact, they've done this many times in research where they will place a muscle or an energy system or something on the body under a certain amount of stress, and they'll isolate the stress and like, okay, this is the stress that's supposed to make the body bigger, better, and stronger. And they stress it out like crazy, and the body builds back to where it was, to where it started. There's no net gain much of the time. It's like, well, if you're stressed, you're supposed to build back better. Never, ever guaranteed. In fact, a lot of times, stress can be the very thing that impedes your success. So that's the first thing we've got to do is get away from the idea that working out is supposed to be beating you up, that the point of it is to stress you out. Because, God, that sucks, doesn't it? The whole point is to basically make yourself miserable, make yourself feel bad physically, mentally, and emotionally. And sure, sometimes it's very cathartic to do that kind of thing. And it's good to push the body to high levels once in a while. But when that's the sole purpose of one's workout, then that gets old real fast. And that becomes very draining on your perceived cost to reward ratio, because you're basically saying, I'm going to just put in as much as I possibly can. And the only way it's going to ever become worth it is to get a crap ton back. And you have to feel like it's worth it. So instead, what we want to do is look at the real reason why exercise works, which isn't to stress yourself out and drive yourself into the ground and make you blood, sweat, and tears at the end of your workout. It's instead to realize that training is about education. It's about teaching your body to level up to a higher level. That's what training actually does. And that's very important to understand, because you can stress yourself out endlessly every single day. Do cardio until you throw up, push-ups until you're peeling yourself off the floor, driving yourself into your hands are bloody and torn up, you're exhausted. You just put every ounce of effort you've got into this in order to drive yourself into the ground and not once ever have any stimulus to change. Ever. It is certainly possible to drive yourself into the ground as hard as you can and still have zero reason to get stronger, because your body doesn't get stronger from stress. It gets stronger from education. And it needs to be progressive education. It needs to be basically you go into your exercise and you are telling your body, hey, I need you to step up how well you can do this thing, how well you can perform. That's what tells you to change. The second you're saying, okay, I know you did the exercise this way, now I need you to step up and do it this other advanced way. And it could be a billion and one things, right? Depends on your goal, depends on what you're doing, depends on your level of fitness. You give me 100 people who want to build muscle with push-ups, I'm going to give them all completely different advice depending on their circumstances on how to do that. But Once we turn from a stress-based mindset into an education mindset, and like, okay, I'm trying to keep my elbows in when I'm doing the push-ups. I'm trying to get 2 more repetitions. I'm trying to keep my shoulders packed at the bottom of the position. I'm trying to keep my glutes engaged. Whatever stupid little thing it could be. It could be the smallest little trivial thing that seems to do absolutely nothing whatsoever. But if it's something that is progressive, that tells your body to perform just a tiny bit better, you instantly have a reason for the body to change. That's the whole reason why micro workouts, my book Micro Workouts works, is the second you focus on that and you accomplish that, that's why training works. That's why exercise works, is you're actually trying to level up your performance, not driving yourself into the ground. And so by doing that, you now have a clear objective of what you're trying to accomplish in your workout, where it's like, okay, I'm just trying to do, and I got 3 sets of 8 push-ups last time. I'm going to do 3 sets of 10 this time. And then you go through and you get 10, 10, and then 8 again, right? Boom, progression. You just did it better than last time. Were you driving yourself into the ground? Was it all out blood, sweat, and tears? Did you do the exercise until you were completely exhausted and you need to have 48 hours of bed rest afterwards? No, because you don't need it, right? It's kind of like another car analogy here, folks. Kind of like saying, okay, if I want to get to work, I have to burn a full tank of gas. So the goal shifts from I don't care about actually reaching my destination. The goal is now on I just want to burn a lot of fuel. And what that does is it takes up a lot of time and a lot of energy, and it's a big pain in the butt, but you don't actually have any guarantee whatsoever that you're going to arrive where you want to go. But the second you make that destination your objective of improving how well you do something functionally on a physical level, boom, you have way more chances of success, and you don't have to drive yourself in the ground. So the shift in your mindset goes from I have to stress myself out and drive myself into oblivion with exhaustion and fatigue and make myself miserable to I'm trying to upgrade and level things up. So that's the first thing that we want to do, is shift that around. Let me get to some questions here. Leroy the man, how's it going? How you doing, Matt? I notice when I'm training heavy on squat or deadlift, like 1 rep max, 3x5, I always try to hype myself listening to heavy metal and consuming more caffeine. If I don't, I fail my lift. So this is something to be mindful of as you are going towards your upper levels of achievement. All right, this is, I always use the Mount Everest analogy, where human beings can go up to Mount Everest, but we can't live there. We can't stay there. I think it was Edmund Hillary, could be wrong on that, where someone asked him after he had climbed up, how does it feel to conquer Mount Everest? And he's like, conquer? We don't conquer Mount Everest. You try to get up. If you're lucky, you get to the top, you do a little dance, and then you get the hell out of there, right? So as you're going to your higher levels of performance, like with this 1 rep max and stuff like that, no, that's not going to be something you can always do, especially as you get more advanced in your career. It's going to be something that takes planning. It's going to take some progressions. It's going to take some periodization and stuff. And you'll be able to achieve that level, but temporarily, and then you're going to have to fall back. Nobody is at their peak forever. That's why bodybuilders, in this case, like power lifters and stuff. I knew a power lifter at the gym, very strong guy. And when I was asking him about a competition, he told me what kind of weights he was looking to lift. And I was like, that's really cool. And then like 2 months later, someone after the competition said, could you lift this? And he's like, oh gosh, no, I got to that point for the competition. I can't lift that just now. That takes me a good 6 weeks to build up to that level. So what you're doing here is you have these supports that are getting you to that level, but it's a very high maintenance level. Okay. It's a very high, it requires a lot of things to be just right. Probably also really good sleep, really good diet. You know, you're in the right mood, right frame of mind, all these other sorts of things. And that's great, but it's not reliable. There's no way you can have it most of the time. It's one of those when the stars align sort of thing. I used to train a guy who had gotten a 1-arm pull-up, and he was always frustrated with himself that he couldn't do it again. Like, why can't I do another 1-arm pull-up? It's like, dude, you know, go buy a lottery ticket when you were able to achieve that, because you just had the right number of circumstances, just was perfect for you that day, and you got it. Chances are you may not get it again for another 3 to 5 years. We could certainly train you up to get stronger and stuff, but there's always a level of ability, like being at the top of Mount Everest, that human beings can achieve, but we cannot maintain. So what you're doing is you're flirting with that level of I can achieve this, but it's really high maintenance. And so you feel maybe like, I've fallen back when it's like, no, it's not that case. Again, same thing in the martial arts, right? Someone gets their black belt and they're like, I can take on anybody. I'm awesome. I'm wonderful. I can fight anybody. It's like, not the other night. No, you were drunk and you were pissed off and you were stressed and your legs were sore from that squat workout. I could probably have my grandmother kick your ass, because circumstances change. As circumstances change, our abilities change. So again, this is one of the things that steals the joy out of our working out, is when we're always trying to achieve and perform at that one top level. It's like, if I don't deadlift my max every time, or I get the 3x5 every time, then I'm failing. No, not at all. In fact, a lot of times it's completely unnecessary. Check out the book Easy Strength by Dan John, one of the best strength books ever written, especially in this regard, because remember, going to those limits is extremely costly on mind, body, and lifestyle. And the whole point of Easy Strength is you're not going to get stronger by elevating your 100% level. You get stronger by elevating your 50 and 60% level. So if you're, say, for example, 50% is deadlifting 225, and then 50% ends up being 250 or even 285. My numbers are off, 275, excuse me, a couple of quarters on each side. Then your 100% will also elevate as well. So this is one of the things we want to give ourselves permission from, is you don't need to go all out all the time. And a lot of times you probably even shouldn't, because it's just going to take so much more toll, and it's going to be, again, a higher level of cost investment and not getting that much benefit. Because think about it this way. The best you can do now is break even. It's deadlifting, let's say a 405 3x5, right? That's your current max, for example. Great. The best you can do is meet it. You'll never progress. You'll never exceed that sort of thing. It's kind of like a lot of my friends in school who are like, I have to get an A, nothing less. You have nowhere to grow. You either break even or you lose. That sucks. So instead, go into the gym with other aspects of, I'm trying to improve the form, I'm trying to improve technique, I'm trying to improve speed, I'm trying to improve how well I can lift the 80% for a while. And then when you want to try and go to a higher level, then go for it. But you don't want to become too dependent on those sorts of things. All right, let's see what else we can do. Emma K, hey Matt, just gifted Frederica with Overcoming Isometrics. Thank you very much. And micro workouts, much appreciated for the support. Time to get packed this year. I'm assuming you're saying jacked, not, well, maybe packed. That could be a euphemism for something else. We have missed you. Thanks for everything. Oh, Emma, it's awesome. Thank you so much. I do sincerely appreciate it. So as I was saying earlier, like driving yourself into the ground is not our objective. Educating our body is. That's what we're trying to do. Now, another thing that goes against the desire to train and stuff is always working to the limits of your ability. So this was sort of the case there with the deadlifting, but it's also working with the limits of your time and schedule and abilities. I'm a big fan of leave a little bit left in the tank. Leave a little bit on the trail if you're a biker and skier like me. Always finish feeling like I could have kind of done a little bit more. And in convict conditioning, Paul Wade refers to this as like banking strength, or saving a little bit, save a few reps in the tank, so to speak. And what this does is it doesn't completely drain you. It doesn't make you feel like you're just always going to your limits. And as a result, you recover a lot faster. You give yourself a lot better chance of not having injury and stuff. But again, you're feeling like I could have done a little bit more. The cost wasn't too high, but it felt really, really good to do that sort of thing. And so your perceived benefit to your perceived cost is much higher. Therefore, the desire to keep going is always a lot better. Oh, good question here, Mr. X. Oh, Mr. X, I've heard a lot about you, Mr. X. Hey, Matt, does this also work on endurance training? Absolutely. In fact, more so. As a bike racer, recovered, I used to always be like, all right, the whole point of me being on this bike is to ride until I'm literally slumped over the handlebars and I'm barely pushing the pedals as I head back home. That's not always the way to go about this, because I didn't try to actually ride better. I just tried to exhaust myself every single time. So this is universal for all forms of training. Right? Sometimes training is very hard on the body. Sometimes it's stressful. Sometimes it's hard on the lifestyle. Absolutely. I'm not saying it's never going to be or it shouldn't be sometimes, but that's not the goal. The goal is to improve how well you do things. So how well can you run? How fast can you get up a particular hill? This is one of the things I love about Strava checklist, because out here in Colorado, there's a lot of popular trails and stuff. So you can have the Strava on your smartwatch or your GPS and stuff, and they'll track you and it'll say, hey, you rode a PR for this section of trail. Not the whole thing, not you have to exhaust yourself. You can be out for a ride and be like, I'm going to try and PR that climb. I have a feeling today I can get it. And I've got this new lease on using my hips better when I'm running or whatever. I'm going to go for it. So you try to PR that one section, which is very beneficial. Then you get to relax and enjoy the rest of the ride or run or whatever it is that you enjoy doing outside. So endurance training, absolutely. Ryan K. Matt, what's up with my non-primary muscle getting sore from an exercise lately? Oh, that's very exciting, Ryan. So here's the thing. When we are experiencing a muscle soreness, you can use lats are sore or back sore after some good neuro grip push-ups. Fantastic. Yeah, I'm not surprised after the neuro grip. That'll definitely get your back engaged to some degree. So here's the thing. When we experience soreness, what that doesn't mean is that the workout was effective. What it does mean is that you're using that muscle to a new degree than you did before. As they say, you get results. Sorry, how do I phrase this? Sore muscles are the sign of a novel stimulus. Results come from an effective stimulus. So it doesn't mean you did anything better. It just means you did something new. But I would counter in your case that what's happened is those muscles weren't really maybe that engaged during those exercises. They weren't really working that much. And so now that they're getting sore, somehow they're getting more engaged. They're getting more turned on, and your mind-muscle connection is getting better suited to it. And those neural grips are probably just requiring the lats to be more engaged for that stability aspect. And so what it means is, congratulations, you've leveled up your push-ups by getting more of the other muscles involved. That's probably what is going on with that. Retro Gamer 98. Thoughts on force feeding for a bulk? Love your videos, man. You're always so clear and precise. Appreciate your work a ton. Well, thank you very much for watching. Yeah, don't force feed, man. So in the same regards to like overdoing exercise, bulking is a lazy approach to not understanding how to adequately eat, because diet and exercise are both the same thing. You know, if you're not reaching your objective, then yeah, doing more is going to be getting you closer to the objective. But once you get to that objective, more doesn't help you. And this goes for exercise, this goes for diet, this goes for every vitamin, mineral, and nutrient, and so on. If you are hammering a nail into the wood, you don't just keep endlessly hammering it. You know, your boss there on your frame in a house, and like, why are you still hitting that? It's in, the nail is in, like, stop it. You're going to damage the wood. Same thing with eating, right? Lots of people, they think, I need to eat more. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Who's to say? Nutrition works that way. If you're not eating enough, eating more will help you. But if you are eating enough, eating more will do absolutely no good whatsoever, because you only have so much of a bucket to fill for your caloric needs, your nutritional needs. So that's why I always tell people the first thing you do when it comes to anything regarding diet is get balanced with a stable diet. Forget, oh, they say, should I do this? Should I do that? I don't care. Don't even worry about your diet. Don't even worry about how much you're eating. Just get consistent first. Same thing with your workout. I don't give a damn what your workout looks like. If it's all over the place, it's largely a guessing game and you're basically just shooting in the dark, hoping to hit something at random once in a while. Terrible strategy. Instead, just get consistent. If every morning you have a donut and a Starbucks Frappo Mapo Latte Sugar Chino, fine, great, I don't care. Start there. Just something that's consistent, for stability. Then once it's consistent, then you make changes. Am I eating enough? I don't know. Eat no more. Eat a little bit more. Add a couple eggs to the omelet in the morning. Have a snack mid-afternoon. Throw in a protein shake after lunch. Add a little bit more. If you do need more, you should be able to get a very strong positive feedback from it. Don't worry about the numbers. Like, I don't care how many more calories or anything, just more. It just needs to be more. When you have a stable set of habits, then a change in those habits is very apparent. How do you know that's more? Well, I usually have 3 eggs in the morning. Now it's 5. How many more calories and protein grams is that? I don't know, but it's more. And that's all that really matters. So once you know if it's more, then you can see, does it help your workouts? Does it help your body composition? All that sort of thing. And that'll tell you if it's really good. But we don't want to just blindly assume I need to eat more, because that's how people get caught in the chronic bulking cycle. And they just get fatter, and it ruins their physique and can sometimes even compromise their health. And it's just not doing anything for them as well. So I would say that goes under the more is always better strategy, which can also be just sucking the soul right out of both diet and exercise. More is always better. More is always better. More sets, more reps, more miles for the endurance guys, more calories, more eggs, more. We don't want that. We want to know that there is at some point out there where more isn't going to help. It is out there. I guarantee you, for every consideration, it is out there. And if you're not looking for it, you're probably going to go past it. And the further you go past it, the worse off you're going to be. Remember the principle of hormesis. A certain amount of one thing can produce the opposite result of that same thing to a different dose. So things that make you stronger can make you weaker. Things that make you fatter can make you thinner and fatter. Things that improve your health can also destroy it. Same exact thing, the dose is off. So we want to get out of that more is always better. Or in some cases, it's also less is always better. That also happens a lot with diet too, where it's like less. And it's like this boa constrictor just tightening around you, thinking, I just need to eat less. I just need to eat less carbs. I just need less junk food. I just need less sugar. And then you're picking the carrots out of your salad because someone told you they have a high glycemic index. And now you're putting in all that effort for no good reason whatsoever. So we want to get off that treadmill of more or less and instead say, but what is really necessary? Because ultimately, you're only going to get benefit from so long. And then after that, it's actually hurting your gains. Thank you very much, Chris. So Chris is here. Hey, Matt, epic video quality now. Thank you. I was on the phone for 5 hours with Comcast yesterday trying to figure out my damn internet, and it was a complete nightmare. And I finally figured it out at something like 1 a.m. or something. And so thank you very much for mentioning that. I was like, I wonder if this is going to improve my stream at all. Looks like it did. Thank you so much. Dave coming on. Hey, Matt, any cues for keeping hips still during jackknife pull-ups, not letting it turn into a row, in other words? Oh, this is so good, because that's one of the big things that often happens is people. For those who don't know what he's talking about, jackknife pull-up is a progression for a regular pull-up, or regression from it. Excuse me, I got my words wrong. Where it's basically you're doing pull-ups with your feet on like a chair or a plyo box or something. So if my hand is my torso, my other hand is my legs, and you're pulling up like this. But if you put too much force into your feet, your hips pop up. And so now instead of having a vertical torso, you're now doing more of a row, which is fine. It's not like it's a bad exercise. It's not a bad way to go about it. It's kind of like a pull row kind of hybrid exercise sort of thing. But I get what you're saying here, Dave. So the secret here is to consciously put less force into your feet. Okay, so you don't press into your feet as much. Ultimately, jackknife, there's a lot of ways you can progress it. One of the most basic ways is if your feet are on the floor and your knees are bent, so you can kind of push off with your feet. That's the easier version. The jackknife pull-up, which you're referring to, is where your legs are straight out in front of you. Ideally, in that position, you should have hardly any force in your glutes and hamstrings, so your feet aren't really pushing down. You're essentially doing pull-ups with less weight on your hands because your legs are kind of taken out of it. So basically think of, I know this is kind of a morbid way of thinking about it, but pretend you're a paraplegic. You know, your legs just not even, there's no nerve activation in the legs whatsoever. It's like they're dead. They're just completely ragdoll legs, like when your foot falls asleep and it's just dead. That's how you want to do the jackknife pull-ups when you're doing that. And that should prevent the hips from coming up. So you still want to feel like your torso is still hanging from your hands. So things like that, what Dave is bringing up, is very key to also giving you more for what you want. So like I'm always saying, we don't want to just go harder. We want to do better. So you could be listening to this and be like, oh, okay, yeah, I notice that when I do jackknife pull-ups, my hips are raising. Okay, you go into the gym the next day or you're doing your home workout or something, and you're like, okay, keep the hips down and you keep your legs relaxed. Your hips stay down when you're doing it, and maybe it's harder, so your repetitions go down, but you're like, yeah, I got that. That was a better technique, better jackknife pull-up. Bang, you are now ahead. You are now winning, and you have made progress in your pull-up game, and you didn't necessarily need to kill yourself to do it, metaphorically speaking. You didn't need to drive yourself into exhausted state. You did it better. And there's this really quirky thing with us humans. We love to do things better. It's a good thing, but it is kind of weird because you could have someone who is the best in the world at whatever it is. They make $1 million a year and they have world records and they're the top of their game, and yet they regress 5% and they're miserable. They're like, the world is ending. They're so pissed and they're frustrated and they're upset, even though on the surface everything about them looks great. But you take someone else who is like, they're relatively not performing well, and you look at them and like, what do they got to be happy about? They can barely do a single bodyweight squat and they're way overweight and they're terribly out of shape, but they lose 5 pounds and they get a single decent push-up on the floor and they're elated. They're like near the point of tears. I've seen it. I've seen people thrilled like they are the happiest moment of their life because they did something that most of us would consider trivial. Why? Because it's better. It's not about the state you're in. It's about the direction you're moving. So this is why you can drive yourself into the ground with exhaustion and stress yourself like crazy and still be miserable, even though your workout is totally badass on social media and everybody's like, oh my gosh, I couldn't believe you did all that work, because you're not moving forward. Our reward system in our emotional state is largely based on progress, not current state. You take someone who makes $1 million a year and they lose $100,000, they're pissed because they're going backwards. It doesn't matter if they're richer than, most people in the world, they're going the wrong direction. That's why they're pissed. You could take someone who is living on the streets, but they have enough money to feed themselves for 3 days and they're elated because they're going forward. Okay? That's what we want to be focusing on. Not where are you, but the direction you're heading in. And funny enough, the more you're pushing yourself to your very limits, the harder it is to move forward. Case in point with my deadlifting man over there, he was always trying to go to his limit. Again, where are you going to go after that? How are you going to make progress from that? How are you going to gain? Eventually, it's just a lot of stress on mind, body, and lifestyle. There's no progress, and that emotional drive to work out starts to decrease and it becomes a chore. All right, let's see what else I can get into here. Alex Amini. Hey, Matt, at the bottom of the push-up, should the scaps be fully retracted or have a slight protraction even at the bottom? I'd say fully retracted. Check out my video on rotation with the hands that I just posted on the YouTube channel, where I talked about rotation of the arms and stuff. That'll get you even more retraction there. I would say to a large degree, it's like you can't have too much there. Just get a lot with that. Jenza M. Hey, Matt, again, speaking the truth. Thank you very much. Or as the best as I understand it, going too hard too soon equals damage, which equals time off from training equals lost gains. Yeah, it's a very good point. Slow, frequent, and steady is the name of the game for me at 54. Listen to Jens M, folks. Listen to him. He speaks from experience, and all the experience from him is worth way more than anything else that we come across in theory on the internet. Listen to him. Wolfy Dragon, it's so good to see you again, my friend. I'm always late to the party. Hope all is well. Never late, Wolfy. The party starts when you're here, my friend. I have to rewatch this later. Remember, folks, I post the audio for these as well on the RDP podcast directory, where you get podcasts and stuff. So the audio will be there if you miss out on stuff as well. So another thing to recognize when it comes to emotional drain from working out is doing things you honestly just don't like doing. It's like, I hate running, but I've got to run. Or I hate doing, this exercise or going to the gym or whatever because I have to. Remember, one of the great things about a fundamental approach to exercise is it recognizes that the actual methods you use aren't really that important. Like, I don't care what workout program you follow. I don't really care diet and stuff like that. All that really gets results is how well you can influence the fundamental process of mother and human nature. And you can do that however the hell you want, any diet you want, any workout program you like, any exercise you want. But I know a lot of rhetoric in our fitness culture is you're not strong unless you can do this exercise this way, or it's impossible to build muscle unless you're doing this kind of training and yada, 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 yada. It's not true. It simply is false. And so that's why I always tell people, if there's a particular aspect of your workouts that you just don't like if I was a genie, like poof, out of the Aladdin's magic lamp, and I was like, I can take away any part of your diet and exercise program and you would suffer no ill consequences whatsoever, what would you love to just give up having to do? What is it? Now, whatever it is, I can almost guarantee you can give it up. In fact, you probably should give it up because chances are very good there's going to be a better option out there that you're going to enjoy more, but you're not doing it because you're doing this other thing you don't like doing very much. There's a lot of flexibility when it comes to approaches to diet and exercise. You can lose weight, build muscle, improve speed and everything 1,000,000,001 different ways. Why settle for the one thing that just doesn't jive with you? That just doesn't kind of light you up in the morning. And if it doesn't do it, then don't worry about it. You just need to get going with the things that make you much more happy. Martin Scholes, how's it going, Martin? Hey, Matt, are you able to give us some infos about your new book, Fitness Independence 2.0, that one that I was talking about? That's kind of what it is. It's going, I don't even really have a title for it yet. That's going to be coming a bit later, unfortunately. I started writing that book, or I attempted to start writing that book last year, but I kept stalling on it. And I just couldn't quite get the message out, wasn't really comfortable writing it. And I've learned over the years that if I'm making a video, or a book, and it's like pulling teeth to try and make the thing happen, that tells me that I don't understand the subject matter well enough to present it. So that told me after several months of not making it work, of like, no, I still need to put this on the back shelf and do more research, do some more meditations on it to understand it at a deeper level. So that's what I'm doing right now. And in the meantime, I'm working on my other two books in the grind style calisthenics system of suspension calisthenics. And then the other book after that will kind of be a two-in-one, which is progressive and weighted calisthenics. And that way I'll have books that cover all of the disciplines for grind style calisthenics, which of course is overcoming isometrics, progressive calisthenics, weighted calisthenics, and suspension calisthenics. All right, so Wolfie is in the house. Hey, Matt, I've been doing a lot more ring dips, and it's helped my weighted dips on the bars. Absolutely. But I can't get past 6 reps on the rings. Would you say holding in the bottom position will help? Well, it depends on what's kind of holding you back there, Wolfie. Now, from my own experience, I would bet money that it's in your shoulders, especially on the rings. Because what ends up happening with a lot of times with people with push-ups, or well, push-ups too, dips are push-ups, but dips especially is they'll hunch a bit as they get down. They'll come down, they'll come down, they'll come down, and the shoulders will elevate, protract, and sometimes you'll even have some internal rotation, which is sometimes more exacerbated on the rings. Watch yourself on video. See if that's happening. In the meantime, try to literally, like when you do dips, push your shoulders away from your ears. Try to get that gap between the point of your shoulder and your ear as big as possible. that may improve your stability. Whenever you improve stability, you improve strength. That'll probably get you up to 8 to 10 right there within a week, if I'm not mistaken. All right. Oh, this is what are you drinking? Check this out, folks. So everyone here on the channel knows I'm a big fan of my Monster energy drinks. This is a new one that just came out. I saw it today. This is their Ultra Peachy Keen. Yummy. Very tasty. And it's brand new. So the first taste. It's good. I like it. Dave is asking, random question, are those 3M hooks on your straps and ISO stuff? Yeah, it's the the anchor straps or the anchor hooks with the little strap that you pull on and it comes off the wall without any damage to the wall kind of things. I bought a ton of them when I moved in here, and it works pretty well. None of the stuff is really all that heavy, so it holds fairly well. Oh, excuse me, Diego. Somehow they convince us going to the extreme is the only way, even though it's unhealthy and even seemingly harmless things. Yeah. Oh, that's a very, very good point, Diego. It's funny how I used to do things that used to be like, oh, I can't get hurt with this, or I can't get burned out doing whatever it was and stuff. So therefore, I could just do it to my heart's content. It's kind of like when people are on a particular diet and they get junk food, which conforms to the diet, like, oh, fat-free candy. All right, I'll just eat this all day long. Or, oh, it's keto ice cream bars. And they overeat it, and then they get sick and they get fatter and everything like that. Same exact thing. There's always a level when you can't know when enough is enough. Fitness asking, are pull-ups worth it if I can't get full range of motion because of a ceiling over the bar? Absolutely, for sure. Because tension is tension. That's really what makes exercise work. I mean, hell, isometrics works. You're not getting any range of motion on those suckers. So yeah, it's still there for sure. But I would encourage you to keep an eye out for other resources where you can do some pull-ups at a higher level, just somewhere, maybe a park with some pull-up bars, sling a couple handles over a tree, like the Nosk suspension trainers. Punch, gratuitous plug again. They're the sponsors of this episode down below. There's a couple of them. Their rope trainer, their RT17 in particular, works really, really well for throwing up over tree limbs. And then you can get a full big range of motion. Plus they rotate very well, which will give you even more range of motion in the shoulders. So, things like that. I wouldn't say, oh, I don't need that full range, but it's still very beneficial. Absolutely. Leroy, the man, what are your thoughts on accommodating resistance, like adding chains or resistance bands on the big three lifts, sort of advanced training style? Is it practical, or should I stick to linear progression? No, add them for sure. They're a fun thing to play around with. They can give you just a new thing. So here's another thing, folks, is a lot of times when we change things up, like a lot of times when we're like, I don't want to work out, I'm losing the motivation to train and stuff, we start to sometimes resort to just variety and novelty and stuff. Like, I'm going to do my squats with bands now. Awesome. Great. What this stuff typically does is it changes the flavor, as I call it, flavor of what you're consuming as far as the exercise goes. Does it really change anything fundamentally? Not really. Not really. It's not really going to do very much, but sometimes a change of flavor is enough to just kind of give you something new to do. So like this, Monster energy drink, I don't know how many of these different flavors they've got. It's like Ben and Jerry's, and these are their low or zero sugar style ones that they make and stuff. I mean, fundamentally, it's the same thing for my body as all the others. There's nothing different. It's just a different flavor. So my perceived experience of it is different, but ultimately it really isn't different as far as my body is concerned. So when we use things like accommodating resistance and stuff like that, you're changing the flavor of the exercise. And you might feel there's a little bit more benefit in the one little area and, kind of gets the hips more engaged at the top of a squat or something like that. But ultimately, don't expect it to do a whole lot for you. But if, again, it's enough to be like, oh, I like how this feels, that's kind of fun, that's all you need to keep going. You just need to perceive a difference. It doesn't actually need to be there in the most classic sense. Very good. Fantastic. Magnus coming on with a question. Hey, Matt, your tip about holding back and leaving some fuel in the tank made me enjoy my workouts a lot more. Well, it surprised me, much better results. Thank you. Yeah, and that's really where it comes down to is we have to make sure that we're not just trying to drive ourselves crazy with work. More work doesn't mean more results. In many cases, it can mean worse results. Go into your workouts with the objective to perform at a higher level. Once you've done that, you're done. I was training a guy the other day. I forget what we were doing. It might have been rows or something. And I was like, okay, finisher move, 30. And he was doing rows on the rings, and he got to 20, and he was just, and then again, it was a finisher move. We're just trying to burn out the muscle to stimulate some hypertrophy. That's all we were trying to do. But he got there at like 15, and then he stopped and he shook out, and 5 were just grinding. I'm like, all right, you're done. And he's like, no, I can get. I'm like, why? Why do those extra 10? We were doing this to burn out your muscle. We're doing this to just get you to that point where you got there in 20. There is zero good reason to do those other 10. It's ego at that point. Like, I could still do the 30. Dude, I just picked that number out of random thin air. I just wanted to give you enough to make sure you burned it out. You burned it out in 20, save that 10. There's no good reason to do that 10. It's a complete waste of time. We don't want to work hard for the sake of working hard. We want to work hard to accomplish the objective. You accomplish the objective, you're done. If you arrive at your destination in a car 20 minutes early, you don't just keep driving around the parking lot. You're like, great, we're here early. Awesome. Turn off the car and, go into the movie theater or the airport or, Spatula City, whatever you're driving to. It's important to recognize what the objective is, because that gives you a stopping point. Ryan K., what's your Ben & Jerry's PR? I think I would say it probably is 3 pints in an afternoon. Back in the day, I could crush Ben & Jerry's like it was nothing, largely because of how much I was bike racing. The best way to look at that, though, is I had an advantage because my sister at the time, who still works for Ben & Jerry's, but at the time she was working in a lot of their expert or not expert, experimental flavor profiles. So whenever they were like playing around with new flavors and stuff, she'd bring home stuff and she'd be like, okay, here's a pint of chocolate covered sugar bomb madness or whatever. We've got 10 pints of this, but we're not even going to put it in production. So I was eating like, this is a Ben & Jerry's flavor. Like, it's like forbidden donut from The Simpsons, right? It's like, oh my gosh, this will never be released. This is my only chance. So I'd eat like 2 pints of that just because it was the forbidden fruit sort of thing. I've eaten a lot of Ben & Jerry's flavors that never made it to market. And I take a certain degree of pride in that. All right. So let's take a look at other things that are draining your motivation. Another thing, and I know this kind of is counterintuitive, but more and more, a lot of times when we are going after objectives that are more removed from the actual goals of the diet and exercise program. Okay, so I'm speaking specifically to people who are like, I just want to be fit. I just want to feel better in my body. I want to feel stronger. I want to feel like, a lot of times we come to fitness because we don't like the way our body looks or feels. We're uncomfortable. We look in the mirror and we're like, that's not me. I need to be someone different, kind of thing. So we think to ourselves, I got to lose weight, or I got to build muscle, and I got to be jacked, I got to have abs and stuff, and then I'll be happy with that sort of thing. But the problem with that is it removes the actual results we want from the process of training. So what ends up happening is you can become divorced emotionally from your workouts. So just as I was saying earlier, where you can have an emotional connection with a workout, even though it has nothing to do with the results you want. People are like, I love this workout. I'm feeling my abs burn. This is awesome. My abs. Even though it does absolutely nothing for their belly fat, they have an emotional attachment to it. Well, we can also go in the other direction where we become emotionally divorced from the workout. And this is oftentimes a lot more common with people who are new to working out or people who are not used to physical activity. I was training a gal one time, I've told this story before, where every time I told her to do something in the gym, she would kind of give me the, oh, I don't want to do it, kind of like pity party, like she's a 2-year-old in a cereal aisle or something. Like, why do I have to do this? She's always whining. I'm trying to turn around, her attitude and everything a little bit here and there. But she never had a positive association with anything we did. And then on a whim one day, I was like, you didn't play sports in school, did you? And she was like, oh, God, no, like I would never, oh God, no, there's no way. I'm like, why not? Like you clearly have something against like sport. What's with this? I got to dive into this. And I wasn't saying it like that. I wasn't judging her or anything, but I was like, okay, we're unpacking something here. And for whatever reason, her social clique in high school made fun of jocks, made fun of anybody who was physically active. And as a result, she had a lot of subconscious programming that exercise and physical activity was like, it's for stupid people, it's for narcissists, it's for all the negativity and stuff. So of course she got a lot older and she's like, I got to start taking care of my health and everything. So she joins the gym. But every time she's doing push-ups, her mind is reverting back to that time. And emotionally, she's equating exercise with whatever she used to criticize, which is why I always tell people, if you want something in life, don't criticize people who have that thing. If you want to make money, don't criticize the rich. If you want to be lean, don't criticize someone who's fit, hot, and sexy. If you want to be strong and a powerful athlete, don't go around the water cooler saying about how all pro athletes are jerks and they're wife beaters and they're all on steroids. You criticize people who have the very thing you want. You're subconsciously telling yourself to divorce your emotional state with the very process that's going to get you there. So the second you start doing something, your brain or your subconscious, which is emotionally led, is going to be like, warning, warning, abort, abort, get us the hell out of here. And and you're literally going to bounce away from the thing that gets you there. If someone is like, I want to be jacked and big and shredded, and you're like, great, let's do these dips. And you all of a sudden you're thinking, oh, bodybuilders do dips. Bodybuilders are stupid, narcissistic, bloated, drug-induced, jack-offs. There's no hope for you. You're dead. There's no way in hell. Every time, and I've experienced many times in my own life where I have made a big change in my physical training, a big change in my physiological capabilities and appearance. I've made big changes in everything. And in every single instance, that change came entirely because I changed how I felt about doing the thing, how I felt about Taekwondo, how I felt about bike racing, how I felt about eating, how I felt about strength training. Every single one of these things at one point in my life beforehand, I hated with abandon. I thought they were the stupidest, most ridiculous, most idiotic thing in the world. And no matter how much I tried to force myself to get in shape, it never worked. But the second I started to reframe my emotional state and associate those things with the things I actually wanted, boom, it was like instead of trying to work against the wind, I was working with the wind. I had a tailwind and it was like, woohoo! And I was on my way so much faster. So be very aware of the things you have a negative association with, how you feel bad about. Sometimes it's because you have an emotional blockage with the method or maybe the results themselves. We'll get into that a little bit more, but let me get to some more of these sorts of questions here. Diego, why is it that depending on the place where I work out, numbers of repetitions go up or down? My body weight is still the same. Has someone else experienced it? Oh, absolutely, all the time. This is why I was just telling a friend of mine who was going out on a trip the other day, and they were going on a vacation, and they were like, so should I stick to my workout? Like, should I go for PRs? I'm like, dude, I don't care. Do something, whatever. And they're like, yeah, but exactly. How should I do? How should I work out? I'm like, you're going on a vacation. You're going to another hemisphere on the planet. Your sleep is going to be different. Your diet's different. Your bedding is different. The equipment is different. We are here in Denver. So if you're going down to sea level, the oxygen levels are different. I mean, there's so many things that are different. It's going to be pointless to compare. Like, I don't care what you do. Just do something to keep the momentum going and have fun because you're on freaking vacation, right? All the time, people are like, I'm going to stick to my workout program. I'm on my vacation or on my honeymoon. Almost never works. That's why I tell people, just go and do whatever. Have fun, experiment, play around with it. You can't mess this up. So that's an extreme example. But when you change your situation, you're changing a lot of different variables in your body and your orientation, and just even something as simple as the width of your bar, right? I was doing pull-ups in my parents' basement one time on my NOSC suspension trainer, and that one trainer has a thicker handle on it than what I was used to using when I work out here. That alone will make the exercise different in some way, shape, or form. So it's a lot of things that are changing. That's why we always kind of want to just be aware of these things and just get what you can. Because yeah, if the time of day matters, is the sun in your eyes? What's the temperature like? What's the humidity like? If I go down to Florida where it's so humid you could drink the air, and that makes a big difference how my body feels. If it makes a difference how your body feels, it's going to affect your performance. So it's a lot of different things that are going to be in that. So don't beat yourself up if you find your numbers go down. Ravi's saying, I recently bought a freestanding pull-up bar, and it's so much better than doorway options and is really making me enjoy working out again. So this is a very interesting thing when it comes to equipment, because back in the day when I worked at the equipment place, I used to sell equipment to people all the time who would say, I don't like working out, I don't like exercise. You know what? I bet if I spend $10,000 on a new home gym, that'll change me around. Almost never works. Almost never works, because the idea of if I invest more money, oftentimes, but sometimes it's energy and other things, then I'm going to be motivated and I'm going to force myself to make good on the investment. Terrible strategy. And the reason is because, again, it boils down to cost to benefit ratio. So if you start off forcing a lot of expenditure, financial or otherwise, and you're like, I have to make good on this, you're basically setting yourself up for failure, because the best you can do is win big. And if you don't win big, you're going to lose. So it's kind of like dumping all of your eggs into a single stock and being like, well, that stock better produce, but I invested a lot, so I'm sure that's going to count for something. No. So when we think to ourselves, if I invest a lot financially, that'll motivate me, it almost never works. But sometimes it does make a big difference if the equipment is actually better for what we're already doing. So when it comes to these pull-up bars, you're like, freestanding, way better. I enjoy the workout a lot better than the doorway option. I'm like, great, that makes a difference. Yes, absolutely. This past year, I went with buying a new mountain bike and a new backcountry ski package. Does that make a difference? Absolutely. Does it make me enjoy going out there and wanting to do it a lot more? Hell yes. But I didn't buy the new bike thinking I don't want to ride a mountain bike anymore. I'm sure if I blow all this money on a new mountain bike, I'll be motivated. No, it's like, I love mountain biking. This is great. And now this bike is going to make it even better. And it did. And as a result, my emotional reward for it increased. Not because I spent a lot of money on a mountain bike or even got a new mountain bike. It just makes the experience better. And that's really ultimately, I guess, the last note to really end with this thing on, is that we want to have more fun. We want to experience better workouts emotionally. Yeah, physically, yes, of course. It's about how your body's working and moving, for sure. But at the end of the day, we have to feel good about what we're doing. I tell my clients all the time, don't forget, this stuff is supposed to be fun. This is supposed to be enjoyable. Yes, it's challenging. Yes, there are hard days at times, but ultimately, this is supposed to feel good mentally, emotionally, physically, and so on. And we all have our off days, but if you're chronically not feeling good about it and getting a strong emotional reward, that's bad. That's a very wrong thing. It's the same thing as if you just walked right in and your shoulder was dislocated and you're like, here I am from my workout. By the way, I got a dislocated shoulder. Is that a problem? Yes, that's a problem. Oh my God, we got to take you to the ER. How are you expecting to work out like that? But when we have people who are like, I just don't like exercise. I don't like training. I don't want to do this sort of thing. And we tell them, force yourself to work out. That's like me saying, force yourself to work out with a broken leg. The drive, an emotional drive to exercise is crucially important. It's not a luxury. It's not something we can just overcome or will into existence. It's something we have to make a priority. We have to seek it to be better. And it's not a case of, well, how much fun is good fun? It's like more fun. If you find a way to make it even more enjoyable, that's going to be the right step forward. A couple of questions to finish us off here. Wolfy Dragon. It's easy to criticize and break down the spirit of others, but to know yourself takes time. Bruce Lee, absolutely. Yeah. And criticizing, it's really weird. One of the things that I learned, not the past year, but over the past few years, is one of the best ways to give yourself permission to do the things you want is bestow that same freedom from your own judgment of others, right? How do I dress the way I do in such flashy attire? I don't give a damn what anyone else wears. But I have friends who criticize everyone that goes down and says, look at their shoes. Look at that shirt. Why are they wearing that hat? That is the worst hat in the world. And as a result, they're never happy with anything they wear. Watch the criticism of others. It is usually a set of bars you're placing on your own choices and freedom. Hey, Matt, move from bodyweight to resistance bands, but I have lost motivation to exercise. How can I get it back? Well, go to the bodyweight. So why did you move, and what went on in the mind of like, okay, I'm from bodyweight to resistance bands. What about the bands isn't doing it for you? Why isn't it fun? Why isn't it making you feel accomplished? Why isn't it the thing that you're going after? And did you have that with bodyweight training? Maybe bring that back in a little bit, combine the two, maybe. That's the sort of thing to look into is what were you getting then that you're not getting now? Trev Barlow, hey Matt, I can do almost as many dips on rings as I can with bars. Is that normal? Not usually. Currently I could do 11 on rings, but only 13 on bar. Usually it's much higher on bars. But again, it depends on a ton of different things. How wide are the bars? We've got like 3 different dip setups at one of the gyms I work at. I use each one, I get different numbers. And those bars are different widths, they're different grips. One is angled, one is straight, sort of thing. So usually bars are better. It's not always 2 to 1, but it's close, sort of thing. Like I can, on the rings, I'm usually around 15 on a good day. On dip bars, I can usually get about 30, like 28 or so. So take a look at, again, the technique. What's different? Videotape yourself. Yeah, that's me and my age, videotape. Film yourself, with your smartphone. Look at your technique on the rings versus the bars. See if there's something different on those bars. Okay, so Quandro is saying bodyweight exercises aren't fun as before, causing me to switch. Well, then why aren't the band stuff fun? So this is the thing is when you have something that's no longer fun and you switch to something else, hopefully that will be more fun. But this is the thing is keep in mind, we want look for the common thread. When someone comes to me and they're like, I've done 15 different diets and I can't lose weight. I'm like, it has nothing to do with your diet then. If it did, one of those would have done something, right? Like, I hate exercise. I've done 15 different types of exercise and training. None of them are fun. Okay, it's got nothing to do with that. You're never going to find the one. You're never going to find the method. If it was the method, changing the method would have fixed it and you would have been done. So it's something else inside internal, like my friend who was, having an emotional block with exercise because she associated it with jocks, and jocks weren't very high up on her perception list. So it's a lot of introspective stuff. I know it's not as fun as logic as, what's the formula and how many sets and reps and what does the science say? We got to get touchy-feely with this stuff, folks. You got to lay down on the couch and say, tell me about your experience with basketball practice when you were 9, kind of thing. We've got to get the internal work done. How do we feel? Why do we feel that way? Okay, I used to feel that way. Now I feel that way. Why? There's a lot of introspection. And unfortunately, I think these days, a lot of introspection is a kind of a dying, not a dying, like a dying art, because we got so many distractions on our smartphones and we got so many things that are pulling us away. Plus, there's a ton of rhetoric in our fitness culture telling you to ignore your feelings, telling you to just keep plowing through, that feelings don't matter. Feelings aren't facts. You're right. They're a million times more powerful than facts in many cases, because you get to know all the facts in the world, but your feelings are ultimately what are going to control your behaviors on a day-to-day basis. So we've got to get introspective, which I know is scary for a lot of people. When you look inside and you start doing the touchy-feely stuff, it can get pretty crazy. You can be going into some dark territory of some stuff like, oh, now I remember why I don't like push-ups, because I used to do push-ups in martial arts class and my instructor would always kick me in the belly and it would make me lose my wind and people would laugh at me. Oh, yeah. Embrace that sort of stuff. Understand that stuff. Okay, great. Maybe push-ups aren't for you. It's like, I hate push-ups. I don't ever want to do them again. Okay, bands, barbells, use something else sort of deal. We want to have a good emotional relationship with this stuff. And if we don't, that's something that has to be addressed. So, all right, folks, I am off. I'm off to save the world. There's an alien invasion coming in another 30 minutes. So if you all wake up tomorrow in your beds all nice and safe and calm and everything seems fine, you're welcome. I just saved the world for you. I think that's the 5th time this week. But, it's what I do when I'm not doing the Red Delta Project. But as always, thank you very much for watching and listening. Again, check out the sponsor for this episode, NOSC Suspension Calisthenics Equipment, down below in the link. It's the stuff that I always recommend because I absolutely love it, which helps me enjoy my training all the more. And as always, this audio will be posted on the RDP podcast station in the next 24 hours as well. And I'll see you guys next week. Till then, be fit and live free.